Windermere with us to talk about the real estate market in Central Oregon.
All right. That's all. Awesome. Well, thank you for introducing me. My name is Wyatt Willis. I work with Noah von Borstel at Windermere. Been there for about 5 years now, and just kind of give you a general market update, what I'm seeing, what we have seen last year versus this year, kind of differences, interest rates, kind of just general things of that nature. I'll say this is the first time I've done public speaking in probably 6 or 8 years, so if I and maybe stammer and stutter a little bit, bear with me.
Please speak up, would you?
Yep, okay, a little better?
Well back here with you.
All righty. So starting off, difference between last year and this year, interest rates, ending 2023 and moving into 2024, interest rates were sitting around that 7.5% ending 2023. They came down to the high of 7.72 in May of 2024. The lowest we saw was about a 6.08% before they evened out around a 6.85. This year, our high has been a 7% and that was in January, and everything's kind of averaged out being about a 6.65 to 6.8%. So what does that mean as far as your average home price, home payment, things of that nature? For example, a typical monthly mortgage payment on a $500,000 house, estimating your monthly taxes are around $3,500, or sorry, not monthly, yearly taxes around $3,500 a year, as well as insurance being around $1,200 a year. If you were putting down 5% on that home, you're looking at about a $3,500 a month mortgage payment every single month on a $500,000 home. Moving into the future, it's hard to say what we're going to see interest rates doing. They've obviously kind of leveled out at that 6.65 to 6.75, but obviously there's a lot of things that play into that. As far as the median home prices, as of May in Bend, the median home price was $772,000. Last month, it was actually, or a couple months ago, it was sitting a little bit closer to $800,000, so it has dropped off a little bit. I'll get into that on why. Redmond, we're sitting around $514,000 for a median home price, and Prineville around $400,000. I'm not going to get into Madras or Lapine, but they're a little bit less or similar to Prineville and Crook County in general. First quarter, everything, like I was saying, our overall prices dipped a little bit from the beginning of this year until now, basically all the way across the board. So Bend going from close to that $800,000 down to about $772,000. Redmond, I think, started a little bit higher in that, $530,000, and now we're down to $514,000. Prineville has actually remained relatively steady, and that's just due to affordability in general in Prineville. It's a lot more affordable to live. A lot more homes are starting in that $400,000 range, but yeah. So total sales volume for single-family homes in 2024, there's roughly 1,800 homes sold in 2024 in Bend, not including multifamily, duplexes, townhomes, anything like that. In Redmond, there was around 850 homes in town that were sold, and Prineville around 250 in town that were sold. As of 2025, this year, there's been 800 homes sold in Bend. There's 290 currently pending sale and 735 on the market. So what that's meaning is currently right now we're seeing almost twice as many homes come to the market as we did last year. If no other homes came to the market this year, we would have about the same number of homes come to the market as we did the entire last year of 2024. Redmond, we currently have around 330-ish homes sold with 107 pending sales and 260 active. So again, adding those numbers up, we're looking at about the same number of home sales as the entire last year, just with what's currently on the market if it were to go away. Our inventory is sitting around 3 to 4 months, so it's going to take approximately 3 to 4 months for those sales to really catch up and push our inventory back down. But that's, assuming no more homes are coming on the market. As more homes come on the market, summertime tends to slow down, so less homes will be coming on the market, but also less buyers will be looking to purchase homes. We're seeing people are going out doing things, 4th of July parade, going to the lake, enjoying time off with their kids, stuff like that. All of this, like I said, is say we've seen about a 10% decrease in total sales from last year to this year, but with the major difference being we're seeing almost twice as many homes come to the market. If we can continue to see the trends through the end of this year, we're going to see more homes and about the same number or slightly less sales than what we did last year. So currently, days on market, I think I might have mentioned this before. We're seeing about mid 50s to mid 60s for most homes for how long they're sitting on market before they're getting a sale. About half of those homes too, they're starting at a price and they are at least doing one price reduction before they're seeing a sale. So that could be $10,000, could be $20,000. One of the biggest factors that's pushing a lot of people towards new construction right now is the interest rates being as high as they are. A lot of builders are offering interest rate incentives that are, could be $10,000 to $15,000 up front, but you're going to drop that interest rate from a 6.75 to about a 5.75. That's very, very beneficial because you're talking about a $300 to $400 a month difference in your monthly payment just by getting that incentive. So we're seeing a lot of builders offering those. We're seeing a lot of new builders or newer builders come to Central Oregon, for example, like Lennar Homes. They're the second largest builder in the United States after D.R. Horton, and they started in basically everywhere here in Central Oregon by October of 2023 is when they first started selling homes. Now we're seeing them in Madras, Bend, Lapine, Prineville, Redmond. They're going to be doing a subdivision off of Northwest Way, and I know they're looking for a lot of new land to develop, and they're going to continue. They've been driving a lot of the new home price or the new builders or builders to adjust some of their markets. For example, from what I've seen as far as Hayden Homes, a couple years ago, you weren't seeing a lot of interest rate incentives or rate buy downs. Lennar has their own mortgage broker, their own mortgage company. They're offering interest rate buy downs to buyers, which then has forced other builders to start to compete with them and either decrease their prices and or start to offer more incentives to really make apples to apples when it comes to a comparison between Lennar and other builders in the area. Going on from here, some new developments that are going to be coming up and or are starting. D.R. Horton and Stonebridge and Stevens Ranch in Bend. That is near the new library off of, what is the, Stevens Road, I believe it is. Yeah, Stevens Ranch off of Stevens Road. So that's actually going to be one of the largest master plan buildings in the state of Oregon's history ever. There's going to be over 1,500 homes and about 600 acres of land that's going to be developed by D.R. Horton, Stonebridge builders, and maybe some others in that area over the next couple years. So there's going to be a lot of development on that southern or southeastern side of Bend, kind of near where the old Costco is. Lastly on this, I talked a little bit about Lennar being the second largest home builder. There also is a lot of development going on off of Northwest Way in Redmond. Obviously, Hayden Homes is doing a lot there. Lennar is doing a lot there. And south off Helmholtz, there's a lot of other builds that are coming up. So market's still being driven by a lot of new builds, and they're taking up the majority of the market. About half, almost 42% of homes being sold are new construction, and that's just due to those incentives. So we're seeing a lot of price decreases on the secondhand home market, or people starting to offer interest rate incentives to really make up for that. Lastly, obviously, two other things, I guess. Development in Redmond. Got Amazon coming in. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen that. And then in Prineville, they're planning on doing, I think it's a 400, maybe 500 unit apartment complex off the Madras Highway too. So I know a lot of builders are going to be working on that sort of stuff, and there's constantly people looking for more area to develop, try and put in affordable housing and keep the ball rolling. Lennar themselves, I know from last year till this year, they have done about a 9 to 15% decrease across their board, whether it's through interest rate incentives or through direct pricing of their home. So they're going to be, a pretty big builder that's going to be here for a while, and they're going to do a lot of homes in Central Oregon, and it's going to drive a lot of competition for other home builders. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Do you guys have any questions or anything like that? I guess we'll start with John.
About 18 months ago, there was a subdivision kind of getting going out Helmholtz way, and it almost like paused for about 6 to 9 months. Since then, that area kind of got completed, and more stuff's coming through. Is this an inventory issue? Is this a rate issue? It seemed like there was a pause, and now things have started moving forward. Are you seeing that in your in the sectors you represent?
I haven't. If you're referring to, there was a smaller planned community off of Helmholtz, just let's see, south of 126 there.
Yeah, like Helmholtz in, I think 30 seconds.
Yeah, that sounds about right. They were doing, there were more small affordable housing. There was like a pause on that. I'm not sure if the builder was selling off to maybe another developer, but I know they've picked up on doing some more over there as of recently, but I'm not sure. Most of the pauses that I'm seeing are due to development delays, like for example, Hayden Homes off of Highway 97 northwest northeast side of Redmond. Sorry, northwest side. I was right the first time. They were planning on doing that whole community area there next to 97, but it sounds like a lot of those lots are not going to be viable for their home site. So their next community that they're starting on is going to be across Northwest Way, which if you've driven over there, they're still breaking rock and putting in utilities and things of that nature. So there's a little bit of a delay for them in transferring over. I know there will be more builders that come in to take over that 97 area project, but I don't know exactly who yet. But yeah, they have that all planned out.
Thank you. So if you're talking about the DR Hortons and
Yep.
Lennars,
Yep.
do they sell their own homes, or do those go through you?
They do sell their own homes, but also they do have agents for representing either themselves, but then coming in and having a buyer. Like I have represented quite a few buyers on helping them purchase DR Horton homes and Lennar homes. At the end of the day, their agents represent DR Horton and Lennar. They're not always representing the buyer as they should.
Homes were also part of the numbers you were talking
Yep.
about
Yep.
as far as units sold.
Yes, correct. Yep.
Wyatt?
Yeah.
People know with Lennar, if they capture you, if you have a favorite real estate agent and you even go on the website for Lennar, you won't be able to use your favorite real estate agent. So make sure, if you want to look at the Lennar stuff going on or anything, call your favorite agent or Wyatt. And
Start with the agent.
Yeah, start with your agent. They're very particular about that. From my experience, you have to register your client with them. It's good for 60 days. If you do not keep up with them and you're still working with that client, you go off, look at other homes, come back in 60 days and you didn't update Lennar and say, hey, I'm still working with this person, they're probably going to try and cut you out of that transaction then as well. And even if your buyer's wanting to work with you, they're going to be like, well, we got their information and, they want to buy our house. So.
Who is a typical buyer in Redmond these days? Is it a family that has impact on our schools? Is it somebody who works here or works elsewhere in Central Oregon?
I'll say typical buyers that I'm seeing, you are seeing some younger people. First-time home buyers, a lot of times I'm seeing going towards Prineville just because of affordability. I'm seeing people probably in the mid-40s, late 30s to mid-40s age range is being the ones buying in Redmond just due to affordability. When you can buy a majority of homes, for example, that I'm seeing selling around under $450 in Redmond are 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,200 square feet, maybe 1,400 square feet at the largest. For that same price range in Prineville, you're looking at probably a 1,700 to 1,800 square foot home that could be 4-bed, 2.5 bath in that same price range. So it might be less convenient to live in Prineville, but the affordability factor pushes a lot of people there, especially when your monthly payment, is going to be around, even on a $400,000 house, you're probably still looking at $2,800 a month on a $400,000 house. So.
What about that same house in
Yeah, 772,000 or so. Yeah, it's very expensive. Then I see a lot of people. I've worked with quite a few people out of Bend. A lot of people in Bend are either working remote, coming from out of area. Typically not your younger buyers or even first-time buyers at that. So.
Two questions, but I'll just give you one at a time. One question is, what do you have to say about the NAR lawsuit and the state commission for goods and all this?
Oh, with the buyer agency compensation agreement, I don't really have any problem or anything bad to say about that. Ultimately, it just came down to transparency and how buyers agents are being paid through a transaction. Traditionally, the seller would offer a compensation, a buyer's agent would then be accepting that. Now, and buyers wouldn't realize how agents were being paid. Now, I will bring a buyer agency commission to someone, say, okay, this is how I get paid through a transaction. This is what I'm going to be doing for you, and just making it very clear. That's always negotiable, but I'll always say, okay, I'm willing to work for this. If we're going to be going less than this, then we'll talk about it and negotiate and try and figure out a deal that works best for you and works best for everybody.
So what's been your experience with trying to negotiate with the buyer that the buyer's going to be paying your fees?
So majority of the transactions, I'm still seeing the sellers are paying the fees on that. Especially right now, because we're seeing a lot more homes on the market. There's a lot more competition. So if you're able to bring a qualified buyer to someone's home and get it sold, usually they're willing to pay you a finder's fee, in other words, for lack of better words, to help them get their home sold.
Is it similar to the fee that you were collecting before?
Yep, I would say it's very similar to the fee I was collecting before. I wouldn't say there's too much change in that. It's just making sure everyone's aware, and transparency in real estate. At the end of the day, it's better for everybody in that way.
You have a question?
Yeah, two that I'll wait.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
What are you saying to justify the difference between the 1,200-foot house in Bend versus the 1,200 house in Redmond versus the cost of the 1,200 square foot house in Prineville? What constitutes the difference in price?
Well, Bend's a lot more touristy, a lot more, I would say it's an area that more people want to be. Redmond, you don't have as many amenities as you do Bend. You're not right there on Deschutes River. You're not as close to the high lakes, the mountains, and things like that. With Instagram and Facebook and all that, Oregon kind of went from being a secret, quiet location to everyone knew everything and could point to where Bend is on a map. When 10 years ago you said Oregon and people were like, oh, Oregon, that's a great place. And you're like, they had no idea even how to say it. So Bend's just, a lot more people have came to Bend, I would say during that COVID era especially, because a lot of people would come there for vacation. Then as people got into remote work, a lot more people started coming to Bend and saying, well, if I can work from anywhere, why not live here? So it really drove a lot of people, especially from bigger cities, California, Seattle, general areas like that towards Bend, which then increased your overall pricing. And then, it's kind of been somewhat of a trickle down between Bend, Redmond, and Prineville. In my opinion, Prineville is probably going to really, really grow, because every time I hear somebody drive down the grade into Prineville and look over the golf course, they're like, wow, this place is amazing. And that, I'm seeing a lot of people who have traditionally grown up or lived in Bend moving towards Prineville as Bend gets too busy, just because you do have a lot of the, I'll say, similarities between Old Bend and New Prineville.
I was demand.
Yep, demand. Yep. Yep. Yeah, and proximity for if people are working in Bend, from Prineville, you're about an hour drive in good weather from Prineville to anywhere in Bend, where in Redmond, you're 30 minutes max to anywhere in Bend. Summer or winter time comes around, I've made that drive quite a bit, and I can say it'll be an hour and a half to an hour 45 if it's snowy and wrecks going on and things like that. So just proximity to Bend is really another big driving factor for prices.
I had talked to a builder working in Madras who also was building houses in Bend and Redmond. And he said a big part of the reason Bend is part of the reason, at least, that Bend has gotten so pricey and stuff is the problem is getting approvals and stuff, getting inspectors out, working with the government. It's very difficult.
Fees
Bend
are increasing.
relative to here and up in Rhinebeck. So I don't know, building houses both places.
Price of land as well.
Oh, yeah, price of land.
Just-
Very significant difference for the same house he's building in all three locations. So, all right, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
All righty, awesome. Yeah, thank you, Ron.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Of course.
Say happy birthday to Noah.
Will do.
Stay
Oh.
here and we'll
Oh,
get a little
Picture,
oh,
picture.
cool.
kind of in front of the banner too.
Okay.
All right, there we go. Oops, I gotta back up, you two are tall. All right, smile.
Hi.
I don't feel tall.
Yeah, I know. Thank you, Wyatt.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Have a great day.